All right. Hey, good morning. Good morning. I am so excited to be here, right? And so when I was given the topic of pride, I was like, maybe it'll be in June, it'll be like out and proud, and like that would have been really cool. But in fact, it was in August. And so I thought, well, how can I make this really real to me? Because my topic is really relationships, right? I'm really about relationships. And I was like, ooh, pride and relationships, there's a space. There's a space for me and this topic. So in thinking about it, I asked my mother an important question. I said, Mommy, because, I still call her Mommy. I said, Mommy, what are 3 characteristics a person must have to be in a relationship with you? And as we talked about it, we realized that there really isn't a line between platonic relationships and even romantic relationships. Anybody that's in a close personal relationship with you, what are the characteristics that that person would need to have? As I talked about that, even with Brandy, as we were preparing for this talk, I realized that those 3 characteristics are more than just characteristics. These are really maybe my non-negotiables, right? These are my core needs. And that matters because relationships are an integral part of our lives. Sometimes we think about romantic relationships and marriages, and I do all the time, right? I do divorces. We think about family relationships. Almost everybody has parents, and a lot of us have kids. We think about these relationships. But we're really in relationship with everyone around us, coworkers, people we go to the grocery store with, our neighbors. Hey, neighbor. Hey. We are in relationships even with ideas and concepts, which is part of why I'm so excited to be speaking with you all at Creative Mornings. Because until very recently, I never even considered myself to be a creative. Mostly because my definition of what it meant to be a creative was so narrow. It was so thin. I was like, well, I don't dance. I don't sing. I don't sculpt. I don't draw. What do I create? But as I began to broaden the definition of creativity, I realized, wait, I'm funny, doggone it, right? And I'm creative when I speak, and I'm creative when I put new ideas together and I share them with people. I'm creating right now. And so now I am a part of the creative community because I was able to change my relationship with the concept of creativity. But really, my topic is pride. Just, wanted to share that with you. So really, my topic is pride. Now, when I say pride, I can mean a lot of things, but I am specifically talking about kind of like your ego, but not in a bad way. I'm talking about your self-respect, your self-esteem, your self-understanding, your self-concept, who you are, your personhood, right? The part of you that deserves to be nurtured and protected. Pride. Now, everything, though, does not fall firmly into that I have to protect it pride concept, right? Some things are just you. For example, do you see these lovely shoes I'm wearing? Does everybody see these shoes? All right, thank you. Thank you. You can thank a couple of girlfriends of mine for me wearing these really cute shoes because I did a talk a few months back, a 9x9, about, keeping your kids happy while parenting apart, lessons from my asshole parents. It was a good talk. And it was a good talk. And in it, I really intended to wear these booties because I wear booties, right? Like I wear booties, I wear low shoes, I wear comfortable shoes. Some people might even say I wear lesbian shoes. I don't know if that's derogatory, but you know what I'm saying? I like to keep it comfortable on my feet, And my friends were like, no, listen, those shoes, they don't look good on you. Like when you're on the stage and you're wearing those booties, it chops you off, makes your legs look short, wear the heel, And I'm like, but I'm not a sexy shoe person. That is not me. Do you know what I mean? I wear booties. Who am I to be on this stage with these heels on, But they pressed it, and I'm glad that I took their, advice on that because I look back at the pictures and I really did look bad in the booties, right? Like the shoe definitely looked better, But that was the point. Like, yes, I am a person who wears comfortable shoes, and that's part of who I am, right? But that's not a hill to die on. Do you know what I'm saying? That's not the kind of pride I'm talking about. I'm glad I wore the good-looking shoes, you know what I mean? And it led me today to have an opportunity to wear these sparkle shoes because I've been looking for a reason, right? So there you go. So that's pride. So the thing with pride is it gives you your personhood, right? And I talked about the 3 characteristics. It gives you, I would say, almost a litmus test sometimes on how to handle relationships. Because the idea is that every relationship isn't worth saving. Some of them are, but not all of them, right? Some relationships do need to be disrupted. And sometimes you protecting your pride, your personhood, taking a stand for what matters to you is the thing that will disrupt that relationship, and that's for the best. I've got a girlfriend. Maybe you all have had this situation. Well, let me start from the beginning. So, you ever have a friend who, when they're with you, they're one way, and like you like them? And when they're with somebody else, they're a different way, and you don't like them? Am I the only person who's experienced this? We've all experienced this, right? All right, so I'm with this friend, right? Like we're hanging out at her house, we're having a good time, drinking margaritas, shooting the shit. You know what I mean? Like it's a good time, right? Like we're having fun. And then her boyfriend calls. And I don't particularly like him because she's different with him, right? Than she is with me. And he's making a request, which could have been reasonable. You know, he's telling her he's going out of town for the weekend and he wants her to keep the dog. Which is reasonable. She likes the dog. You know what I mean? She's connected to the dog. She's got her own dog. I guess, you know, it wasn't that strange of a request. But then he says, and I want you to come pick the dog up. I was outraged. I can't explain to you how outraged I was about that request. I just felt like it was completely out of line. You know what I mean? My blood is boiling. You can drive yourself out of state to see somebody else. You can't drop your freaking dog off to somebody that you want to babysit it, you know? You're not gonna leave any food. You're just gonna leave. So anyway, I'm livid, right? But she's not nearly as pissed off about it as I am. So now I'm pissed off that she's not pissed off, right? So this is, right, almost a real rift in the middle. I'm like, this is too much. Don't you realize this is out of line? Is he not crossing your boundaries? But he wasn't. He was crossing my boundaries. And so in that relationship, I had to make some major decisions, right? Because as much as I wanted to substitute my judgment for hers, I wanted her to see it the way that I saw it. I couldn't do that. So I can make one choice to decide, you know what? I can't tolerate this, right? Who I am as a person, what is important to me, cannot stay in close relationship with someone who would tolerate being disrespected this way. And I could leave the relationship to preserve my sanity. Legitimate option, I think. Another option is to accept the fact that I can't substitute my judgment for hers. And the fact that, in fact, it's not my personhood that's being attacked here. And to keep that clear line in the sand, to maintain our relationship the way that it is, and hope like hell they break up, you know? And so, right? But that's the thing, right? That's the thing with everyone has their own characteristics, their own personhood, their own core needs that must be protected in a relationship. And mine are not necessarily the same as yours, and that's okay. And that's okay. Now, in my co-parenting relationship, though, when I tell you that man busts my personhood boundaries all the time, okay? All the time. But in that situation, it's different, right? Because as much as I would like to stand my ground, right, and demand that he respect me the way I need to be respected, I often have to do what my grandmother would call take low. Sometimes in that situation, my pride has to take the back seat. I have to stand down because the more important relationship is my children's relationship with their father. And so while I have a very nice shared parenting plan, I wrote it myself, I know it's good, that says when and how often he should get the kids, do you know what I mean? I can't rely on that document, I have to rely on him. If he says he's coming, I say, okay. If he says I'm bringing him back early, I say, okay. If he says I'm not coming, I say, okay, what am I going to do? My other option is to stand my ground, right? And I say, listen, I have this document here. The judge has signed it. You get the kids from this time to this time, and if you can't make it, you can't see them. But who is that hurting? Who would that destroy? All because I'm trying to protect my own rights? Sure, sometimes I feel disrespected. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. But I take it because there is a greater good. Because there's a greater good. So now, I've talked a few times, right? And it'll come back because I'm going to ask you guys, what are your 3 characteristics, right, that a person must have to be in a relationship with you? And I've mentioned that, in fact, you can use these characteristics as a litmus test sometimes to decide what to do in certain situations. So I had a good one. I'm going to tell you a very personal story now. In April of this year, I planned a trip to Jamaica for my birthday, which was just past August the 5th. Leo season, thank you. And I'm so excited about this trip, right? Like I planned it, and 3 weeks after putting the money on that trip, I end up in the hospital, and they had to do an emergency surgery on me. Sigmoidectomy, if you've ever heard of this. So they had to remove part of my colon and give me a diverting ileostomy, which means that as I stand in front of you right now, I have a colostomy bag. Just weeks after planning this trip to Jamaica that I had really been looking forward to. So now what am I going to do? I had an opportunity to play victim here because I am hurt. I don't like the way my body looks. I feel like a stranger, a foreigner in my own body. How am I going to go on a trip and be on a beach? Can I wear swimming suits? Can I even do this? But I dug deep and I was like, hey, let's talk about it, okay? Because if these are characteristics you want other people to have, these are characteristics you have to have yourself. And my 3 core needs and values are generosity. Generosity, like just a bigger view. Things are bigger than yourself. You got to be free with all the stuff that you give, you know? And I said, you know what? If I take this trip, if I keep this trip, how freeing might it be for other people who are having body issues that I made the decision to not let this stop me, to come on out to the beach. I even wore a bikini a couple of days, right? And do this with my body. How might that help someone else? That is generous, you know? My second word is independent. And doggone it, I got all these dependents. I got 3 kids. I needed a break. I needed the break, right? And lastly, interesting, right? It's super important to me that people are interesting, that I'm interesting, and if nothing else, there was definitely going to be a story involved in that, you know? And I assure you, on the trip, it wasn't easy. Actually, a girlfriend even said to me, she says, you make it look simple, but I know this is a lot. And it was, because if I didn't spend 2 hours in the bathroom every day, I didn't spend any time. But I took the trip, and I went on the trip. And I feel like I protected what was important to me, my personhood, my core needs, my core values. Now, it might have been different for somebody else who would have felt like, no, safety is maybe their core need. And the idea of traveling with this kind of open wound to another country might not have made them feel safe. Do you know what I'm saying? Everybody has an opportunity to have their own values, but my values said, keep the trip. And so I went. And I was glad that I had something to lean back on. I had something to use to help me to make that major life decision. And as such, you all will now have a similar opportunity, right, to come up with your 3 characteristics that a person would need to have to be in a relationship with you.